Well, I think it's just a huge, broad Shakespearean drama with the Roosevelts, and certainly that's true of the Underwoods. And it is about a whole cast of characters. There's a central couple at the heart of it, and many layers of supporting characters. And it's about politics, civics, how things work, how you get things done, and a kind of backstage dramas. And for us, rather than focusing on an exterior view of the Roosevelts, we do deal with all of those exterior events, but we do it from, as we say, an intimate history, an intimate perspective. So we know the sort of psychodynamics between people, as well as the more familiar outer manifestations, and that resonates as I binge with Beau's extraordinary work, and he binged with our stuff before it was even done.
Yeah, I was very lucky. Ken invited me up to see an early cut of the Roosevelts with a lot of very smart people to watch it and talk about it. And one of the things that struck me was how human Ken was able to make them. I mean, obviously they were humans, so he didn't make them human, but he shed light on their humanity. And I think when it comes to, our drama is set in DC. I mean, it's power at the highest stakes. And what interests me in any story is one of two things, either ordinary people doing extraordinary things, or extraordinary people doing ordinary things. And I think with both the Roosevelts and the Underwoods, you get to see a bit of both. We all know the extraordinary things that all three of the Roosevelts did, but they also dealt with tragedy, they dealt with the complexity of love, they dealt with setbacks, they dealt with physical infirmity, and in our own fictional way, some of my favorite moments of House of Cards are a couple sitting at a window sharing a smoke, access to a time in Francis's life when we knew he was capable of great connection, and when he goes back to visit his alma mater. And I think that it's at that juncture between the extraordinary and the ordinary that myths and legends, but also reality lives. So yeah, I think they're very similar in that regard. And I hope you do season 2 and 3 and 4 of the Roosevelts.
I watch and think about the differences between it is, this story is over, there can't be season 2 and 3, that we know what happened, that we were in more complicated times than we're in now, but the politics and the machinations were less complicated. That he could have 987 whatever it was news conferences and feel that every reporter felt they had a kind of transparent access to the government, and at the same time they weren't allowed to photograph the braces and weren't allowed to, had to turn off the cameras, that he made his painstaking steps, which we've been able to assemble frames here and frames there. So they're dealing with a different kind of political machines that didn't marshal the same amount of money, which is the key thing. And that's what's so appealing about the Roosevelts. Both of them, like Francis Underwood, felt that the mere making of money was not enough for any man or country. And so what the Roosevelts were after was that power that Francis did. Now the question is to what extent that corrupted and putrefied with them in aspects, and did, and to the extent that it does with Francis.
It makes me think of so many things. I mean, first of all, in terms of the media and the scrutiny and the 24-hour, I mean, if you're a president of the United States, it's difficult to not be in a frame of something at any given moment, unless you're in your bedroom. One of the most shocking things when I went up to Walpole and saw this early cut is Ken said, this is the only footage we have, this 4.5 seconds, I think it was, of Franklin with his braces. I mean, here's a man who the whole country knew had polio, kind of collective self-denial. You show cartoons of him being this vigorous guy, like running to the Capitol or whatever.
People would say time and time again, I went to see the president and he stood up to greet me.
That's interesting, yeah.
And he couldn't stand up without aid, ever. It was just the force of that personality. His personality stood up to greet you, and that's what you felt.